Right, hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Right, so we're on to the next job. So yeah, the usual suspect, JCB TM headstock. Yeah, it doesn't really take much explaining what's wrong with it. So yeah, obviously that's ripped open. It's cracked across there like they usually do, just not enough metal across there. Both have done the same. And the bolt snapped off that holds a pin in. Then the pin works its way out. You can see it's not been all the way in there properly. Then it comes out altogether and then breaks out of there. I'm not sure whether it's had something done with it before, this headstock, because these holes are supposed to be 75mm. Supposed to be a 75mm pin that goes in there. And that hole is massive. Like, you wouldn't think it'd warm that much. It's like 84, 85mm. So whether someone's bored that out before and put a bush in there and the bush has come out, because it looks like it has a chamfer all the way around the hole, which you wouldn't think it'd wear like that. It's like 86mm that way. And this hole is not quite as bad. Well, it's still 80mm, it's supposed to be 75, so yeah, both of them need line boring. Then obviously that needs sorting. But anyway, you've seen me do these a few times before, so I won't talk too much, I'll just get on and do it. Chop them off first with the plasma or the gas. And we'll wash the weld away, cut some new ones out, weld them on, line bar everything through. I've got them plates just quickly cut off. Just looking there, you can see down there sort of where the weld hasn't burnt into the plate properly when it's been welded on. You can see there as well. So I think I'll just wash that bit away now with the arcade gouger. Wash down there and try and get rid of that weld, and then that middle bit should just come out. Right, so I've got all them cut off and ground down and flat now. I've got rid of everything. So I need to cut some new ones of them out now, out of some 25mm plate. But I just need to cut something out of this 12mm before I take it off, which is another job I'm on with, which is making like a front drawbar and weight frame for a tractor puller. So I'll get that cut out, and then I'll get on with the job I'm on with. It will be a video. I don't know whether you'll see this first or that first. Right, so I've got the plate on there. I'm going to gas cut them out, and I'm going to cut 6 out, and then I've got some for next time because I do quite a lot of these JCB headstocks. Right, that is all them cut out. So it was a bit like playing oxygen roulette because it was resting on the needle for about 10 minutes. Anyway, just as I was cutting that excess bit of plate off, it started losing pressure. So yeah, we weren't far off running out of oxygen. So yeah, we'll maybe wait for them to cool down a bit and then we'll dig them out and then get them welded onto the headstock. So we've got a chicken in a tray there. That one's not quite ready to eat though. Must be nice and cool for them in here. I think that's why they're in here. So I've just laid the old one onto there, sort of lined it up, and I'll just use a transfer punch to mark through where that hole needs to be. I do have it marked on the file, but because I'm flame cutting them out, you can't centre mark them like you can with plasma. I could use the engraver, but it's set up to have the stop on it, and when it's got the flame torch on, I don't have a stop on it, so yeah, it's just better to, or easier just to mark it through like this. Oh, fuck's sake. Right, that's them drilled and tapped. So I did actually snap a tap when I was tapping that one. But I managed to blast through it with the plasma, like pierce through it and knock it out. So I've saved the hole. I think it was blunt, to be fair. I think because it was blunt, it was taking a lot more force to turn it, and it snapped. But anyway, I used a different tap. Obviously, I used a different tap because that one's broken. But I found a sharper one to do that one, and that one tapped easy. So that's them done. So we'll get them set up in there now. Right, I think we're about ready to tack that on now. So I've got a bit of box in the middle and then a template of one of them but cut out with 2mm. So I've got my spacing right, measures right from there to there and there to there at the front. So I tack them on and then that front just wants moving that across a little bit to get it the same. I should have ground a bit off them first before I put them in, but it's all set up so I'm committed now. So I'll tack it on and then I'll weld down these sides and then I'll grind a bit off the end and fill that in with weld. I'm not going to chamfer these because it gets a bit welded in the middle as well, so there'll be more than enough weld to hold it all on. It saves a bit of time as well. Right, so they're tacked on there now, so I'm just going to cut this middle bit out and then it needs pressing to go in there. Right, that's that cut out, so it works quite well just turning the plasma down for marking stuff. So yeah, I'll get that pressed now. Right, so that's that bit pressed. And I've ground the mill scale off it and sat it in there. I ground a bit off the end. You might want a bit more taken off that chamfer for when I've got this welded up. But yeah, that'll do that bit. So we'll take that back out again. We'll preheat it and then get these welded down and then tack that in. Then we'll weld that across the top. And then I think it needs welding up on them bits anyway. So I'll take it off the bench and then I'll weld these up on the level rather than welding up there. Might put the pot pack, might put a ram in there and push it out a bit, because they do have a bit of a tendency to bow once you've welded them up, which isn't really a problem. It doesn't affect how they operate because there's more than enough tolerance in the brackets that it, like the implements that it picks up. It's all getting line barred as well, so it doesn't really matter, but it just looks better if you can keep them as straight as you can. Now, when I used to weld them up on my old bench, I used to put a bit of plate under the middle and try and like pre-stress them so they were like stressed the other way. But this bench, although it's great, it's not really designed for pulling stuff really tightly down to it. I don't think these clamps are just designed for holding stuff down. I don't actually know if you can get stronger clamps for pulling stuff down to it tighter, but sort of a fabrication bench, not really a pull things straight bench. So yeah, providing I can still get to where I need to get to with the ramming, we'll put it in. Right, so I've got all that welded up. It was actually a couple of days ago when I welded it up before the weekend. Our electric was scheduled to be off as well on Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, I can't remember. So I didn't want to get any further into it and then the electric go off and then I couldn't do any more. I didn't want to preheat it again and then start welding it and the electric go off. But anyway, it turned out the electric didn't actually go off, so I sort of wasted an afternoon waiting for that. But anyway, yes, I'll take it off the bench now. There's these bits here still to weld up and down there, but I'll tip it on its side and do that. And then there's also a plate to cut out and weld across the front to block this cavity off here. So yeah, I'll take it off the bench and do that. Right, so that is all welded up now. I've got that plate welded in there. So the reason why it's got a hole in it is to let stuff back out, because there's holes in the side there for the rams to go through. Not for the rams, for the hydraulic hoses to go through. So if stuff got in there, then there'd be no way for it to come back out. So at least with the hole in the bottom, or water or whatever can come out of there, rather than it just being an enclosed sort of space. But yeah, we'll sit that back on the bench and then set up ready for line barring. So I'll chop this bit of box section out now, it doesn't need that in anymore. I'll probably go with a bit of a crack because there'll be quite a bit of pressure on it. And then that bit I'll knock one side off, I'll chop through one side, let the pressure off. And then I usually like to line bar it through with that tacked on because they seem to vibrate a bit otherwise. But I need to relieve the pressure off it first. Otherwise if I line bar it and then relieve the pressure off, they'll bow in a bit and then the pin won't go through. I've got that nicked off, and it's just pulled in a bit as that. There's supposed to be 102mm gap between there and it's down to 100mm. And the link that goes in there is about 100mm wide. So just wants opening up a bit. What I should really do is compensate for that when I weld them on and weld them on a bit wider. But it's just when you weld across there, it sort of pulls them in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a bit of heat down the outside of them, just above where that weld is. And hopefully that'll counteract that weld, shrink a bit and pull them back out again. Right, so I've warmed up and down either side, and we're back to about just short of 103, so that's better. Better slightly wider than too narrow. Yeah, about 102.5. So yeah, ready to line bar it now. So I've given them holes a clean up with the sanding wheel and die grinder, or sanding wheel and the drill, and then die grinding bit in the die grinder. So last time I did one of these, I used my homemade line barring machine. I think I made a jig to line the holes up. Well, this time I'm going to use the S-Power because these need bar welding, and it'll just be easier with the S power and set the welding torch up and bar welding with that. So we're going to set it up on there with the alignment cones first. I'm going to use the 50mm bar. I've never actually used the 50mm bar yet, so it'd be good to have a go with that. So yeah, we'll get that set up and then put the bearings on, and then we'll put the bar welder in and weld them round. Right, so we're all set up, ready to bar weld that up. So I've had to put this end bearing on the outside because there wasn't enough space for it to go in here. I've had to put that one on there because otherwise the bar wouldn't be long enough. So, but the actual line bar itself is too big a diameter to fit on here without catching that lot. So that's why I've done it like that. But yeah, we're set up with the torch in there, ready to go. So we'll bar weld around that one now. Right, so we've got the first run of welding, still not built up enough yet, so we'll do another run round again. Right, that's both sides welded up now, so I did 3 runs in that one to get it down to like 70mm, and 2 runs in this one. For some reason that one was bigger. But I'd rather have too much weld than not enough. I'd rather have to cut it back out again than having to put more weld in afterwards. So yeah, that was welded at 125 amps and 19.5 volts, same as what I always use. This one at this side, I was having a bit of a job getting it to run in the middle. It was sort of touching in one place, but then nearly too far away in another. Whatever I did to try and angle it better, it just kept doing the same. But there's quite a lot of stick out from there to there, so whether that's the reason. This second one went a lot better. I've got a bit blobby there where it was like just on the edge of the hole, and this one, can't see, there's not a very good bit at the top there, so whether that'll be any good or not, I don't know, but put the boring bar in now and do a pass through it and see what it looks like. Right, so we've got the boring bar in, we've got that tool set up in there. So it's the first time I've used this 50mm bar, so should be able to do a bit deeper cuts with it than what we can with the 35mm. It should be easier to alter the tool height on this bar as well, because at the other side of the tool it has a grub screw, so you can undo that one and then wind that one out, which then pushes the tool out. So yeah, that's set, well, about set in as far as it will go without the insert touching the bar. And it's using that thing, got 19mm, well, half of that. It's the bar, 50mm bar plus 19mm gives me 69mm, so that's what the hole should be once I've cut through it with that. It needs to be out to 75. So yeah, we'll run that through, see what happens. Right, so yeah, that should be the final cut now. So I used the dial gauge. Thought maybe more accurate using that than using that. At least with the dial gauge, you've got a 0 point, where with that, if you sort of slip or mess up, you can quite easily lose where you were. Right, so we're on the final cut now. Still a little bit chattery, even with it taking a real light cut. I thought with it being a 50mm bar it'd have been a bit more rigid than what it is, but maybe we should have had another bearing. in the middle somewhere. Right, that should be that one finished as well. Yeah, so take the tool out now, take the bar out, and I think I'm just going to smooth them off with a grinder rather than trying to use the tool in here, because I had a go on that one, it was just too chattery. There's quite a bit to take off, so yeah, I'll just go around with the grinder, and then my little chamfering tool, I'll go around and chamfer the hole with that. To do the top hole, I'll have to use my homemade line borer because I haven't got any more of these bearings, so I can't set up to cut that one with the S-Power because I don't have any more of them. So and I need this bar in here to measure off this bar to make sure this bar's parallel. So I've just found these plates. These are what I made the time before to get the distance right between this hole and that hole. I can't remember why it's got two sets of holes in it though. Can't remember what that's for. But I also made these to go in there, to go from 75mm down to 40mm. So then put 40mm bar through there, put them plates in, and then put another bar through there, and that gets me distance right. I'm still going to have to use my homemade line borer because these plates are set up for 40mm bar rather than 50mm or 35mm, what that uses. So yeah, but that'll make life easier. So yeah, I'll get my other bar, 40mm bar, set up using them. Right, so that is the other line bar mounted on. So for those of you that are reasonably new or not been on the channel for that long, this is the line bar that I made myself. It's pretty basic, but it does the job. So it's got like a milling machine feed on the end that lines this thread, and then there's a nut in there that pushes it forward. Then it's got this Ivan stock drill motor on to spin the bar. I got it made and got it working, and then I never really finished it off. That's why it's going rusty. But yeah, it does the job. So I'll get the tool set up in there now, cut this one through, and then we've got enough travel to get through to this one and cut that one through as well. So the homemade one is actually cutting nicer than what the S-Power one was. Right, I've got one last cut to do. We're about bang on 24mm as it is. So I want half a mil taken out now. So I've got my clamp and my dial gauge on there. Move the tool out, half a mil. Right, that's both of them bored out to size then. So they bored out a lot nicer than what they did. Whether it's because that's like onto weld or don't know, but you can see by the swath how much nicer it cut compared to that stuff. But yeah, the old line bar works pretty well. So I made it myself. Yeah, we'll take all that off now, get all that put away, and then we'll tidy up these holes by hand, just with the grinder, I think. Right, so that's all the line bar and gear taken off and put away. So I've ground them off flat, and then I've gone round, chamfered the outside of the hole with the little air-powered chamfering tool. So little nick, I ended up with a little nick for some reason. I must have caught it with something. I just had to die round that little bit out. So they're nice. The measure, bang on what I wanted to measure. It's just this one, it's not quite perfect. If I'd have noticed this before I took the bearings off, I would have done it again, but there is a little bit of porosity in there, which I didn't realise. When it had the bearing on, I couldn't see in from this angle. You can't really get your head low enough in here to look in, but it's not bad. It'll do the job. It's a damn sight better than it was anyway. It was, well, that hole was 10mm bigger than what the pin was before. So now it measures bang on what it's meant to measure. It's just got a tiny bit of porosity in it. Then there was a few bits where it was short of weld, so I've just gone round by hand and dabbed a few bits in, and then I've just had to go around the outer bit with a die grinder to smooth it out. You see there is a bit of porosity in there as well, but I never seem to get one that goes absolutely perfect, which is quite annoying. There's always some issue somewhere with something. Anyway, I am still pretty much a beginner when it comes to bar welding. I've done quite a bit of line barring, but not so much bar welding, so can't think of any more excuses. But yeah, they're back to within what should be when they were new. This lot is a lot stronger than what it was when it was new. So yeah, this is not my idea. I've sort of copied this off. There is other ones out there that have been made like this. So it's just a lot better idea in general. But yeah, that's all that done. I think I'll give it a bit of clean off and give it a spray with some black, and then that's that sorted. Right, so we've got a bit of black paint on there now. So that's that finished. So put it back on the pallet, get it strapped down, and then send it back off to the customer. So I've just included some pictures of the weight frame I made last week for the front of a tractor puller. I think by some of the comments, a lot of you maybe didn't understand its purpose of what it was designed for. It's not actually designed to do any work as such on the farm. It's for a tractor puller, so all it has to do is lift the front of the tractor off the ground a little bit and pull it back to the pits. So it's got not much weight on it, only the weight of the front of the tractor, which isn't really a lot. And then it's not really pulling much. It's only pulling, tractor is only allowed to weigh 3.5 ton for the class that it's in. So yeah, that's what it looks like on the front of the tractor. And I'm going to see it pull. It's pulling at Scorton this weekend. Yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again next week.